In a second, I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves to you, but we've got a panel of rock stars this morning, and by way of a support act, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name's Catherine from Built Environment Skills in Schools. I'm a behavioural psychologist. I don't know anything about the technical side of how stuff gets built. People tell me and I repeat it as if I understand it. But what I do know is the impact of what we build, the consequences, the way that we shape people's choices consciously and subconsciously. And that really matters to me, and that's a lot of what I do, spending time in schools, helping children to understand that they don't just have to be passive in receiving that, they can be part of shaping it. And that leads me nicely to today's theme, which is about building the future of Coventry Warwickshire. Hopefully that double meaning isn't lost on you, Warwickshire. Hopefully that double meaning isn't lost on you. Obviously we'll be building the future in terms of skills and school children, but also building the region that we want to see and who do we need in order to do that. So without further ado, let me introduce the panel. If I can start at that end, if you'd like to just introduce yourselves in terms of who you are, where you work, and a little bit about your construction life.
Hi, well, I'm Dawn Spicer. I'm Associate Director at Robertson's Architects in Warwick. We're a medium-sized practice. We have a broad spectrum of work, but my interest particularly is education. It's probably why I'd invited me on to the panel. We have a lot of education experience, having worked at full schools like Northampton School. Interventions, small interventions, receptions as well. So it is quite a broad spectrum of work. And I'm here today with some of my props, my Lego bricks and matchsticks, which hopefully will become clear as we go on.
Morning, my name is Stuart Taylor. I'm from a company called Firefly. We are commercial drone operators. We established around early 2015. We provide a range of services to the construction sector, as well as corporate media and marketing. We also have a focus on the training side on behalf of the CAA and STEM, introducing the principles of technology and the use of technology into schools.
All in all, my name's Phil Warwick and I work for CITB, Construction Industry Training Board, and primarily we have a vision really to ensure that UK construction is the best and it can be really future driven, planning ahead, etc., things like that. And we do that in a number of ways. First off, we look at trying to attract the best the industry can have, and that ranges from returners to the industry, new entrants to the industry, young people, people of all ages and backgrounds. We also help and support employers, making sure that they have the right skills and access to the various finance support streams available. And we also work with local authorities and things to make sure that standards are in development and are relevant to the industry of today and the future. So that's where we're at the moment.
I'm Edward Hudson, so I cover business development for Deeley Construction. Part of the group, so a wider construction property development group based here in Coventry. We work in residential and non-residential, so all the typical commercial, industrial type schemes.
Thank you very much, panel. I'm told by Coventry local authority's website that there are 54,000 students here. That must be quite an impressive campus they've got at Coventry University. I'm sure that's for current students, but nevertheless, we've got lots of questions that schools and colleges have sent in advance of today. So I want us to cover a broad range of subjects about building the future. But I'm very conscious, and I'm sure you've been to these kind of events before, where there's a lot of talking, not necessarily a lot of action. So before I start on the questions, can I just get a quick show of hands from the audience? So I know that this will be lost on Facebook. Who, for themselves or on behalf of their company, goes into schools to engage? Okay, that's actually a really good number. Well done. I'm very proud of yourself. Obviously, this will be going out to with the intention of targeting local schools today, but Facebook being what it is, technology being what it is, children across the country hopefully will be picking this this up, and so there'll be things that we raise today that hopefully they will be putting back to their local authorities and their labs to question why they're not being part of these conversations. At various points, I will ask you to contribute questions to the panel rather than save them all to the end. But for now, let me start by asking about your roots into your current career. You'll be aware, hopefully, that qualifications are changing in the construction industry. There's still a lot of professional qualifications, but introducing lots of apprenticeships and starting to introduce T-levels. Now, this is something that is entirely lost on schools, but is also pretty lost on the industry. And I have to say, it's something that we need to take responsibility for, because if we don't know what we'll be doing in 10 years' time, how on earth will schools possibly know that? But I find that people who come into construction didn't necessarily come into the job that they started at right from the beginning. So let me start at the far end. How did you come to do what you do?
Well, I formed a traditional route, I'd say, into architecture. I realised I wanted to do something with the built environment, probably at secondary school, and from then on, that involved my choice of A-levels. Went to university, did a 3-year degree course, and a year out as required by Part 1 of the RIBA, then 2 years post-grad, graduate diploma, then another year out, and then my Part 3 professional practice, so 7 years in London to get into architecture, be a qualified architect.
I did 10 years in housing. I felt the need for a career change. I had an interest in Model RC and the kind of coding and the technology and design side of unmanned aircraft at that stage, in a very kind of early development. Then I, with a friend and later business partner, he was able to introduce a unmanned system or service within his organisation where they looked at potential savings of around £80,000 a year just on the scaffolding and access side. So with my interest in the unmanned, the technology side, and my business partner's interest and experience in integrating that into a property service context, there was a light bulb moment there. So the route to getting qualification in terms of a commercial qualification has remained pretty static since around 2012, 2010. Barrier to entry, I would say, at the time that I qualified, was slightly higher than it is now. So nowadays, the kit that we're using is fairly widely available and fairly cost effective as well. Whereas go back maybe 5-6 years, you'd need a fairly intermediate to high level of knowledge just to keep these things in the air and sustain them. Whereas nowadays they're much easier to look after. And it grew from there really. So once we identified a kind of business case for that, the savings spoke for themselves and the potential benefits to organisations. And of course from there, from that point, it was really focusing on what markets we wanted to go into.
My background isn't actually construction, so it's kind of, I came into this for a reason. I've got predominantly 25 years background of advice and guidance, working right across the board from schools and colleges to civil service departments and to local authorities. And there came a point where I started to give myself some advice and guidance. And it was like, I need to do this. So, and one of the things that interested me was the construction industry. The key areas were the direction I felt it was going, as to how it had a look of the future and the technology and the developments compared to where it is, where it's going, compared to where it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. And once when I started to look into it, I realised that actually it's very exciting. And so because of that, I started to look into where I could go, what I could do, and I ended up coming into, I was successful coming into CITB, and since then I haven't looked back. So I'm constantly looking forward, and that's only because of the nature of the business and because of the role I do.
I started at Coventry Uni doing a manufacturing degree. So as a manufacturing management, came out with sort of idea of I'll be in a factory, and just about the sort of first, second year, I was thinking I need to change my route, so I went down more marketing strategy, business strategy way, and then ended up with a national contractor. So worked in the head office with the central marketing team there, and then sort of came through to working for a regional contractor here, Deeley. I have to say, quite happy, by chance potentially, but very happy how I've come into the construction world. Just love getting out on sites and sort of working locally. You get to see, oh, right, we've done that, or was it Warwick Hall the other day, just saying, oh, Deeley built this hall. Just brilliant to see that. So I think I've looked out in construction really, but things happen for a reason, don't they?
They do. Quick show of hands from the audience. Who came into construction by design? Who knew that this was the industry you wanted to be in? And who came into it by adventure? One of the first questions that we've got from schools, from a number of schools this morning, won't surprise you, it's the dreaded B word about Brexit. I do a lot of work with the Careers and Enterprise Company, if you're aware of them, they're a government body, arm's length government body involved specifically in careers advice and guidance in schools. Their evidence shows that 56% of young people already have concerns about their future job prospects, and they're very conscious that Brexit will change things, but nobody really knows how. And that's not unique to schools. That's, I think, something situation we all find ourselves in. But if I can ask the panel, I mean, the industry has struggled with the skills shortage for a number of years. The Egan Latham reports were 20, 25 years ago. We were talking about skills shortage then. Do you think Brexit will change how we do things? Do you think it needs to change how we do things? Do you want to swap?
I don't think you're right.
Carry on. No.
Okay.
Apologies.
I think we had one example working on a scheme for a college, and we were introducing off-site manufactured bathroom pods. So since we're a student resident scheme, and as soon as we had the announcement of we're leaving the EU, there was sort of a hit on the economy. So that was an initial knock-on in the cost of our build there. From a still side of things, a tedious link, but we've then gone and looked at, because this pod was coming from abroad, now we've looked at using a UK system. So we're developing sort of the opportunities for the local economy, people are delivering local products to us. So I think if I have to admit, I won't get too political, but I think we can sort of, if we're still looking after our local trades, local suppliers, then you're going to be creating job opportunities throughout. So that would be my.
CITB has spent some time looking at Brexit. To give you an overview, we've created, there's a green paper that we've researched, and the actual formal white paper is all on the CITB website, so please feel free to research and look into it. With regards to some of the outcomes that we found, there's a number of things with regards to the impact of Brexit and the industry. A couple of things is, we've noticed that employees are aware, clearly everyone's aware as to the situation, but interestingly, the construction industry and the businesses within construction aren't necessarily planning for the result of Brexit. They're aware of Brexit, they know the potential impact of Brexit with regards to maybe their employee staff, maybe they're having to leave or choosing to leave and go back to the EU and further afield, etc. But as a business, not necessarily planning for that. So there's an awareness to the worst case scenario, but not a planning strategy in place at the moment. And we feel that that will only start to gather pace as Brexit starts to rapidly draw nearer. And there may be a bit of a panic, a sudden rush towards that. CITB, what we've actually done is we've started to raise more of a profile with regards to the support we are giving to businesses. And that could be financial support, could be research support, could be advice and guidance with regards to the impact. Majority of people who may be affected, as Ed actually said, is predominantly people within construction, employee-based staff are the trades. And so there is a fear that once they go, then all of a sudden there'll be a skill shortage, a hole in the industry. And so COTB is putting together packages, funding available for employees to tap into, to claim, to allow them to financially support and upskill their current workforce, because that could be part of the future plan where you try and hold what you've got instead of allowing the individual to make the choice. You kind of allow them to kind of stay with you as a business, or if they do choose to leave, then what you're looking at is potentially tapping into funding streams and grants for upskilling and people entering the industry. So it could be young people, making it more attractive, but also allowing people to understand what the industry is all about and do a lot of myth busting, because you'll be amazed the amount of myths around the construction industry. The young people myth and perception isn't what the reality is all about. So CITB is in the process of trying to get that message out to all and everyone, but it's quite a big wheel to turn. So what we're trying to do is work with industry, work with businesses, but at the same time work with key people in schools and colleges, just to make sure that everyone's aware of the industry, the future that the industry is going in, and actually how attractive it is to work in. So the idea there, from a financial point of view and a careers perspective, any potential gaps within a business, if people do choose to leave, they should be filled quite quickly, or the business should now be starting to plan in preparation for the actual date early next year, so that there isn't a gap. So there's quite a lot of work, but please feel free to have a look at the research that CRTB is doing and ongoing as well.
Well, regulatory change in the unmanned industry is nothing new. Since we've been since 2002 and certainly 2010, there have been big changes to how use of unmanned aircraft can be employed within the UK. So the official statement from the CAA about 6 months ago is, don't worry, there's not going to be any significant changes on the horizon. Yes, we're leaving the European Union, but we are still part of Europe, and our particular industry is kind of pigeonholed into the aviation side. So the key message at the moment is don't panic. There's not going to be any massive changes. In terms of employment, whilst the UK was a little late in developing and establishing itself within that industry, they are still very highly regarded throughout Europe and the world in terms of how we regulate and control, particularly around the safety side. So anybody that is qualified within the UK, yes, it is a UK qualification to operate these aircraft commercially, but it has a level of respect within Europe that sometimes you can bypass some of the regulatory steps in terms of a certificate to say I'm qualified in Spain, for example. And I'm hopeful that will continue to be the case, because we are, as a country, pioneering a lot of industry change, not only with, say, some of the activities that Amazon are doing with the delivery side, so one of their development R&D centres is based in Cambridge, but I think as long as we continue to be bringing innovation into the industry, the UK will be seen as a partner that people want in there, that they feel comfortable allowing them to operate in Europe. So the key message is there is change, there always is change, and I think people in this industry are aware of that. And basically all you can do is plan ahead for the next 12 months, because after 12 months it could be changed. So a recent PwC report predicted that by 2030 the unmanned industry is likely to contribute £43 billion to UK GDP. However, there are some barriers to that, one of them being regulatory. So there are things that the technology can do, but we're not allowed legally to do it. So for example, distance. So we could cover larger areas of ground because of technology. I mean, I can fly up to 2 to 3 kilometres away, technically, but not legally at the moment. So I think, Brexit could be a good starting point for the UK to say, right, this is our next step for pioneering innovation in this industry, and we're going to set an example to the rest of Europe to say this is what we're doing. But the other barrier to that is some elements around public perception. So the general public have a certain idea around drones, which it's going to take a little bit longer to dispel.
Well, professional services, I mean, the RIBA have a bit on their website about Brexit. Essentially, as far as I can see, foreign architects are in this country have mutual recognition of qualifications, and that will continue up until you leave. After that, it's a period of uncertainty. There's also European rights for personnel over here until that time is secure. The bigger question, I think, is will we create an environment where people want to stay? Because depending on what happens, and this applies cross-sector, if the environment's not right, we risk a brain drain. So we need to create an environment where people want to stay in this country, where it will have a very good future. We need to be optimistic about that, and then we'll attract relevant personnel, and hopefully we'll be able to negotiate an arrangement where we will maintain mutual recognition of professional qualifications, cross-border barriers will be minimised, and ultimately, depending on what the immigration policy is, we will maintain professional trades flowing freely between European borders and professional services.
So in summary, careers advisors and teachers who are watching this on Facebook, lots of change, but potentially good change, just change. We've touched on technology, and you won't be surprised to know that that's one of the next questions that came from schools. Young people as digital natives understand the world of technology, but one of the things that teachers comment on is that it's often pushing the technology that we use rather than how we're embracing the technology that children use and young people use. By way of an example there, if any of you are interested, there's a fantastic report called the Brum Youth Trends, which, as the name suggests, studies young people, surveys young people in and around Birmingham. There's about 6,000 people, I think, who respond to this every year. 16 to 24, which, as someone who works in that age group, I can tell you that there's almost nothing that they have in common, because that's a fairly wide range. But one of the stats that came from that has really stuck with me is that 47% of these people, so almost half of the people who responded to this, said that they had joined some kind of online network, whether that's Twitter or a forum or whatever, to try and find a mentor. Not necessarily someone who was going to take them by the hand and take them through every step of their career, but someone who could answer questions and just point them in the right direction. So I would say, in terms of using the technology that is already there, these children are shouting into a void, trying to find you, trying to ask you questions. If you're not where they are, it makes it really difficult for them to take those next steps forward. And it's not necessarily a massive commitment on your part, but I would say, if you don't already, if you're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, that kind of thing, connect with schools, connect with students, be part of the conversations that they're already having, if that's something that's of interest to you. But taking this question into technology, obviously we have one panel member particularly whose grasp of technology is probably beyond us all, but children are learning code, they're learning Raspberry Pi, they're learning things that, I don't know about you, but was never even mentioned at school, something that I have the faintest understanding of. But technology has the potential to move the industry forward, not just in terms of the speed or the cost of things, but also the quality, the way that we create solutions for people. So if I can start at the far end of the panel, in terms of the technology that you use, how do you see that changing over the next sort of 10 years or so?
Well, BIM inevitably is something in architecture perspective that has come on board, and we're embracing that and using that currently. But beyond that, I think what is the next big thing? What is the next big driver? And I think it has to come perhaps from dreaming big, and maybe the construction industry has been one that hasn't always dreamed big. You look at Elon Musk, for example, he dreamed big and he's managed to reland a rocket. The space technology, people dream big, dream outside of the box, the technology then follows. I haven't seen that in the construction industry, I have to say. If we we dream big and something that seems impossible, just the journey trying to reach that impossible brings so much new technology along with it. And I think that's perhaps where we need to start. And there was a 3D printed bridge recently, I noticed in one of the construction magazines. So maybe it's materials technology, maybe it is 3D printing, maybe we can use 3D printing to help solve some of the problems. Cast bricks, cast stone mouldings, maybe they could be 3D printed. That would save money. We need to think outside the box really in terms of construction, push for the impossible to achieve something that we wouldn't have thought we'd achieve. And I think it could be, ultimately, I could design something in BIM, transfer it to someone, press a button, and it could be 3D printed as a component. And that would be a great way of dealing with specials, because we pay a fortune for specials at the moment. But if it would help our architecture if we knew that it wasn't going to cost so much to produce something that was that little bit more crafted. And I think that would really help, not just the architecture, but the cost. And it would help us. We can see something, we can see it 3D, and it can manifest itself reasonably quickly. We can see if we like it as a sample, and then it can be produced en masse.
Yeah, I'd like to sort of continue that in that I think the way our industry and what data we're collecting, how that needs to change is the displaying and the integration of some of the data that we're gathering into existing systems or development of new systems that can handle that. So for example, a couple of years ago we did a pilot where we were able to generate from a hotel, it was a large hotel, we were able to generate in a single day a three-dimensional rendering of building with accurate point clouds down to sub 10 centimetres, which then was imported into a BIM system, which following on to that you could have a visualisation of all of the property assets such as windows in a visual form, so you could see exactly how many windows were there, you could drill down to see when the windows were fitted, what materials they were made of. That data capture is very quick, but I think innovation needs to continue with how that information is stored, handled and distributed, because ultimately the equipment that we're using is just a means of gathering data. It's nothing, that's all it is. So sensor technology is coming on leaps and bounds. So 5 years ago, hyperspectral was something that was mounted to large fixed from the aircraft. LiDAR was a traditional ground-based or fixed wing technology, whereas this year, you've got looking at six figures, but you're able to get hyperspectral imagery and LiDAR units onto relatively compact systems. Children, rest assured, anybody watching at home, they are so capable in terms of the current school attendees and the school leavers are leaving with skills that we would only dream about 5-10 years ago. So we recently completed a STEM course. It was a 5-week course in Wales with rural school leavers, looking to expose them to other uses, other industries, because there was a government-funded project. They were being exposed to a very narrow representation of industries that they could go into. And it was fascinating seeing children of say 15, 14, 16 years old. You give them an idea, this is what this can do, and they were just going off on all these different ideas and things that we wouldn't have thought about. So they've got the technological knowledge, and the only thing that's missing is a bit of imagination. So finding a need, and then they're being equipped with the basic knowledge that they can go and then develop it themselves. But yeah, just the kind of financial example we had was we did a CBBC program for them again a couple of years ago, which was 9 to 14-year-old children, which we were training them to fly on relatively small aircraft, and then moving up to around 20, 25 kilo aircraft, big, very intimidating aircraft. And within 2 hours they were going from never flying before to flying these things around a racetrack fairly competently. So that continued. There were some better than others, but on the whole they were picking this up. The last day of season 2 filming, the dads were like itching all the way through to go, and we were like, no, because they're about £12,000 a piece, and they're 12 aircraft. On the last day of filming, season 2, £98,000 of equipment was written off in one day. Because it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, really, of that if you're not fully aware of your competency, you might go into a situation overestimating your skill, and that was a fairly costly. So they've got the ability, to dexterity. No, what's the word for? Coordination. Yeah, they've got the coordination now. They're growing up with it, with computer games and the toys and the products they're exposed to. So that's ticked. So they can focus more time on the development, the coding side, software side, hardware. So it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, it is actually. Construction is very exciting, and that's the reason why I got into it a few years ago. But picking up on some of the points that people have already spoken about, construction is a global industry. We kind of sometimes we stick within the UK because clearly that's where we are and that's what we do. But on the global scale, what you find is that something that's working well somewhere else will soon eventually kind of link into another part of the world or another sector. So when it comes to technology and innovation and future forward thinking, then it's quite exciting. A number of examples that not only blends technology and gadgetry, could even take into account science and things like that. So there are things like self-healing concrete, where there's the concept of, and the science behind that in relation to the manufacturing of it and then the use of it. How that could have a massive impact on industry on a large scale. You have things like modular buildings. Is the future going to look less bricks and mortar, and is it more going to look modular? Where literally, when the groundwork has been put in, will it literally within 7 hours, shall we say, to simplify it, you have a house that primarily it's decorated, has all the services, and literally you can just move in. At 5 o'clock in the evening, the house is built. So again, that's very simplified, but the concept and the future and how things are moving forward. You've also got, from a robotic point of view, you've got things like exoskeleton suits from a wearable technology. You've also got things like nanotechnology, where there is research on the global scale about using robots, small robotic four-wheel drive robots to lift and shift bricks and build brick walls and things like that. So technology and science and everything else is moving at a rapid rate of knots. Virtual reality, augmented reality, people can now wear goggles and just look at a room and feel like they've stepped into the room because of the goggles they're wearing, and they can survey the room, they can design things just by wearing a set of goggles. I've talked about wearable technology, obviously the suits. You've even got things to keep people cool on a building site. We had a fantastic summer, but it was hot. And so, heat and cold affects the industry. So just from a user, a wearer, a worker, you have to make sure that they're safe and they're comfortable in what they do. So that technology now to the point where people can wear clothing to keep themselves cool on a really hot day, but vice versa, keep themselves warm on a really cold day. So the future of construction, taking into account technology and science and maths and everything you can think of, it's actually really exciting. And so looking forward to seeing as to where it goes, really. Yeah.
Echo Phil's comments, really. So the use of off-site manufacture it's great for students today, because you could go, you're not going down all on manufacturing or construction. The industries are really coming together. So talking about homes, on Tuesday I saw a home made in a factory. You could not get a better environment for working in. You're still going to be taken out onto site, but it's just the industry's emerging. So there's loads of tech going in there. And yeah, the exoskeleton suit is something straight out of a Ridley Scott film. It's amazing.
I was going to say Robocop, I'm sure.
Iron
Man. There we go.
That was, if you want to look that one up, that was Wilmot Dixon. Just go on YouTube and see what they.
So is that for lifting, or is that
lifting?
Yeah,
bricks.
yeah. Lifting.
Yeah, so that was amazing. It was very cool.
Wow.
We're all going to put an order. Walk around the town.
I'll find a use for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't really add too much more from what Phil said, other than we're embracing the use of, say, iPads out on site. If we're going and you're looking around a room that you've just completed and you have your drawing ready on the iPad, you can look up there and that fixture and fits in. All right, we'll tick that, but that needs replacing, and that will automatically go off to the subcontractor or the designer who needs to update it. It's really exciting time for what's coming up, and that's what we keep trying to, or we must all sort of tell schools and colleges when we're going out to see them.
Absolutely. There you go, careers advisors. Technology is definitely something that's moving forward in the industry, but I think also we have the technology that we have now, but the young people that you're teaching and supporting are probably able to create and invent things that 10 years from now will actually radically change what we do again. Just a quick note to the room. I know that we started late today. It's about 10 to 9 now, and I appreciate that some of you may need to dash off to your day. If you're happy, I'm going to carry on. We've got a couple more questions and for the panel, and then Q&A and things. But if you do need to dash out, please don't feel uncomfortable about that. Construction as an industry runs at about 11% women across the board, about 1% on site. That hasn't changed in 25 years. That's not necessarily a stat that we should be really proud of. But to my mind, diversity, equality, inclusion is more than simply a gender issue. I think when we look at incorporating people with disabilities, working with minority groups, that kind of thing, in terms of contributing to the voice of what we create, particularly locally, I think that's something that's really important. I'd just like to ask the panel about their thoughts on equality and diversity, particularly around mental health and how they're supporting their workforce. In terms of Deeley, because we started this end, how are you embracing gender equality, broader equality, and mental health?
For our examples, we try and link with local girls' schools specifically. So Dawn and I have been along to Kingsley Girls' School in Leamington. So just to maybe break down the myths, to take Phil's phrases, and just talk about all the different roles that are available there. I suppose it's the stigma of all construction, it's bricklaying or it's carpentry, etc. But there's so many different roles that you can go into. If you're into art, you can enter our industry. If you're into IT, Stuart's proven there, really. I think it's just sort of opening up that there's so many different roles. It doesn't matter if you're boy or girl, you can just come and join our industry, really. The mental health topic going around at the moment is obviously nationwide. Everyone's a lot more aware these days. I think construction sites are getting better. It's more than just, say, a poster on the site cabin these days. You're getting guys to talk to one another, open up, guys and girls, sorry. But just getting everyone to talk and just be more accepting. The stigma is really changing, and I've seen that only sort of 5 years here at Deeley Group. I've seen it change massively already, so it's a positive turn.
CITB take these matters quite seriously, really, with regards to making sure that everyone can enter construction if they choose to. So from that point of view, we try and work alongside anybody and everyone that wants to get involved, and we try to address some of those key issues to the point where we kind of throw ourselves into it, to the point where it's then obvious the fact that, you know, this is a myth that's been addressed and has more importantly been challenged by people. To give you a number of examples, for example, with regards to mental health, CITB can fund businesses. Grant funding is available for businesses that choose to send their staff on first aid mental health awareness. So what we do, we financially promote that by saying, you know, okay, maybe not first aid as such, but definitely mental health first aid, you know, because that's really apparent at this moment in time, and it's very crucial. So from that point of view, we support the industry from that side. with regards to pockets of groups of people, a big thing is women in construction. From that point of view, we have funded various projects. There was one quite recently with regards to the working with a company, and we funded just under £500,000 with regards to addressing gender diversity in construction. And that was primarily focusing on Crossrail, Tideway and key construction projects in London and Birmingham. So we take this seriously because from our point of view, construction is open to all. There shouldn't be a barrier for people wanting to enter construction based on race and gender and beliefs and everything else. If you want to learn the industry and if you want to get into the industry, then there is either support available or the work is there. It's just, as Ed was saying, it's just making sure that people are aware of the bigger picture and not just the myth of something that was 10, 20, 30 years ago. Because as hopefully we've demonstrated so far, the future of construction is far different to what potentially people either believe it is now or to what it was 10 years ago.
So our perspective from the training side, I probably trained a couple of hundred people coming into this industry over the past 2.5 years. Paul's probably coming up to 100 or so, aren't you?
150
I would have to admit that it is a very male-dominated industry. Whether that is an appeal issue or I'd say, and I look to my colleague, I'd say about 95% male. Would you say higher?
Yeah, I'd say about 90-95% male on the courses, yeah.
That being said, the people that are coming onto the course, there is no difference between the types of activities that they're doing. So for example, we recently trained a lady from the university who developed a system where it was for reforestation. So she developed off her own back as part of her university studies to automate an aircraft, which was a modified paintball gun underslung on the drone, which had a seed pod. So she would fly along, dum, 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 and it would go on the plant. So she designed that. And then following on from that, that route was saved in so that they could monitor the growth of those plants for years to come. So there's no difference in the types of activities between, say, genders that are coming into the industry at all. It's a very innovative practice. On the mental health side, though, the only thing I can comment on really is that because we're kind of pigeonholed into that aviation sector, that industry, there is a very strong focus on that kind of fit to fly mentality. So making sure that you're in the right frame of mind and you have the right level of concentration and your focus is in the right place before you know, if you're responsible for that, the safety of that flight, whether it's gathering data or whether it's filming for the BBC or whatever, the responsibility lies on you. So if you're stressed or if you're feeling anxious about something, then it's your responsibility to say, you can't go ahead. Because ultimately the responsibility is on you. But we've trained people from BBC, emergency services, NBC News, a wide range of industries, and the demographic is very fixed along all those industries. It's very male dominated. But I'm hoping that, say, with the current skilling up in schools, that won't be a barrier. There'll be, regardless of gender or age, somebody will see a need, and they'll utilise technology to fulfil that need. So gender shouldn't be a barrier to that.
Well, yeah, the RIBA have positively engaged and proactive in supporting women in construction and in architecture. Earlier this year they ran an event, Women in Architecture, and promoted a small film called She Draws, She Builds. So they're proactively engaging. I think we need to reach out to women more. It varies practice to practice, but generally we're talking 20% maybe, 20 to 30% in practice. Some practices, of course, are entirely female and some aren't, so that's a really rough average. But I think there is a perception still. I know Keepmoat did a survey. They asked women, how many of you would consider a career in construction? And 13% said they'd consider a career in construction. But then they were advised, well, do you understand breadth of the construction industry. And again, as Ed says, we've been in and we've looked at trying to promote the breadth of the construction industry, hydrologist, geotechnical investigator, UXO surveyor, all sorts, ecologists, and once they understood the breadth that's possible in the construction industry, 45% then said they would consider green construction. So it is very much about myth busting, but it's about education, and it's about, even at primary age, I think, engaging and telling people how important the built environment is, getting them to explore the built environment, giving them the vocabulary to understand the built environment. And it's happening in toys. I noticed that when I was little, I didn't think there was a pink Lego brick from memory. Not that pink should be gender specific, but it may appeal to a broader range of people. And I know we've got Lego Friends now, of course, that very much engages with broader gender issues of society. So we've got all colours, all Lego bricks. Everyone can be creative. They're aware of the built environment at a very early age, but somehow that disjuncture occurs later on. And not being aware of the built environment means we don't know how important it is to us, and perhaps construction as a profession is undervalued because people don't understand how it can affect us and how significant it is. When we go into schools, certain schools, very often you could be standing on the table and you may not have very many people interested in your industry. There's a lot of people interested in the NHS, in professions that help us, but people don't understand the role that the built environment has and how it affects our lives. And I think we need to promote that, because then we are promoting construction and how important it is. In terms of mental health, there are working hours. The matchsticks are quite a good one as well for parents, not just women in construction. And perhaps shared parental leave has helped that. But these symbolise the sleepless nights, perhaps, that you have when you're a parent, and how you have to try and juggle that with your work, which can be quite full on. And certainly some London practices, it's seen as the norm where you have to work long hours, and that shouldn't be the case. So we've introduced flexi time. I know a lot of practices introduce flexi time. We have that, and it's a great benefit because it helps with childcare from both male and female carers, and that takes a lot of pressure off and helps with your mental health as well.
Brilliant, thank you. My final question for the panel, and something that a number of schools and colleges contributed to, so thank you very much all of you that were part of this, is around environmental issues. So I teach environmental impact of construction and regularly horrify my H&D students with stats like construction is responsible for 25% of all global air pollution and responsible for 50% of all landfill. We can do better than that. But in a very local sense as well. Also, we love roads around here, we love cars, we love the pollution that comes with that. And the future of the region may not be that. The future might be something that is altogether more environmentally sound. If I can start at the far end of the panel this time. In terms of environment, circular economy, that kind of thing, is that something that's embraced by your organisation? Is that something that you believe the future will include over the next sort of 10 to 15 years?
Certainly, sustainable architecture has been a theme throughout the 20 years I've been involved in architecture. And yes, I'm a firm believer in fabric first in architecture. Technology is great, but if we don't get the basics right first, then it's pointless trying to bolt on solutions afterwards. So fundamental things such as orientation, insulation, solid gain, thermal mass, natural ventilation, all of those things should be considered first of all. But there are new technologies, and it's trying to involve those at a very early stage in the design, get them in a very early stage. I think in the future there may very well be boiler plants that are some kind of control cold nuclear fission, but until that comes, we have air source heat pumps, for example, or we might have photovoltaic panels. We're still a little way off integrating those fully into materials. I think that still hasn't been exploited fully into facade materials, into harvesting the energy in the actual built form rather than sticking on panels afterwards. It was touched on, explored in roof membranes for a little while, but it seems to have died a death. But certainly solar shading, thermal insulation, trying to run models very early on to see what little tweaks in the development, what impacts they may have on the built form. And then thinking about your modules to try and minimise wastage. Can you design a ring to a certain module so you reduce the amount of offcuts with a view to reducing the amount to landfill? So there's a whole waste management issue there that we try and look at as well.
We have tended to support some of the environmental issues for construction in an evidence gathering format. So a lot of the companies that we work for have a very keen focus on the environment and how that ecology aspect integrates with the construction that's taking place. So we've been doing a series of evidence gathering exercises where they want to demonstrate that they have complied with some of the commitments that they set out from the beginning that they will fulfil in terms of percentage of green space or ecology corridors, and also showcasing that in a consultancy format as well. So you as a company, a construction company, you have an ethos of benefiting the environment and working within the environment. How do you get that across within your consultation? So how do you demonstrate that you're doing that? And that's one thing that we've been able to help a lot of companies with. So whether that be a routine weekly surveys, which they're almost shared in real time, that we can get the results back within 24 hours, and that can be shared out. Another interesting one is the ability to share that with stakeholders without necessarily bringing them onto site. So one use has been, traditionally they'd be piled into the back of a Land Rover, maybe whether that be representatives from the local authority or key partners, and they'd be driven around the site. Whereas we can gather that information either while we're out on site anyway, or we can get that very quickly and then communicate that back. I mean, the thermal side of support as well. I mean, the thermal imaging sensors that we can cram onto those aircraft, even 2-3 years ago, it's advanced greatly. So the data we're able to get on thermal efficiency of the building is very.
I agree with what's already been said, really, with regards to the environment. The construction industry does support things like recycling, renewable energies, even the concept nowadays of reducing the amount of cars on the road by home working, using technology, virtual reality, the use of drones, things. So making technology work for us to the point where it's easier, because life's always nice when it's easier, but also where we're having less impact on the environment. Also things like using, I mentioned renewables, wood, things like that maybe is slowly coming back, where they're looking at that kind of technology as such. But what was said with regards to modular, with laser cutting and the style of computers where you can cut things so precise that wastage is virtually a bare minimum, because let the computer do the work, let the computer do the cutting, and then literally it just easily everything slots together. So technology can work hand in hand with the industry, but more importantly the industry can work quite nicely with the environment. And it is ever changing, things do change, air quality, pollution, things like that, but it's always monitored and maintained. Which is why, from a career point of view, you could even work in construction as an environmental specialist. So again, it's another myth with, what can I do in construction? I have a passion for the environment. But you can work in construction and still maintain that passion. So, the scope is huge, and it's just knowing what's going on within the industry, and as I say, planning to the future.
From a contractor property group point of view, you're all sitting in a very environmentally friendly building right now. So this was built in 2010. We've got ground source heat pumps and rainwater harvesting, etc. So we wanted to, when we moved from our old offices, the idea was to promote, let's build this right first time. Going out on site, sort of touching on what Dawn sort of talked about, you designing from the get-go, let's try and get our product building to be as environmentally friendly as possible. So it's our responsibility, as we're 14,001 environmentally accredited, so we very much offer solutions to our clients and say, have you thought about doing it this way? One example might be, Dawn again talking about, don't just bolt on a load of solar panels on the roof. We said to the client, why don't you think about how you're fitting LEDs? You're saving on cost of maintaining all the PV panels, and you're reducing your energy costs overall for running your building. So it's just getting our guys to go, look, these options are out there. And some interesting points that are coming out plant-wise. Cars are becoming a bit more hybrid or electric only. Plants in the future, excavators, it's going to take a big bit of big battery that you need on an excavator to power that. But that could be the point, and just trying to encourage things, getting the EV charging points on our sites, like when we're building, encourage the workforce to come to site by more environmentally friendly ways. It's just a responsibility up and down the supply chain, really. So.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, hopefully careers advisors, we've covered off there Brexit, technology, diversity and environment, so hopefully that covers a broad range of things that some of the students were asking questions about. I have one final question for the panel, and because I'm sort of putting them on the spot a little bit, I'm going to answer the question first, but I'm going to ask them, as an industry, we're quite spectacular at being very siloed in what we do. Nobody really talks to anybody, and let's stop doing that now. So I would like to ask the panel in a second to name somebody that's not part of their organisation, a company, an individual, that you really champion, that you really think is doing amazing things in the industry, because it's something that teachers often ask for. Sources to be able to go and find out a little bit more about information. So it could be an individual, it could be a company that you know is doing amazing things, and whilst they think about that, I will let you know about an organisation called Building People. You may know Rebecca Lovelace, who was previously from Buildforce. She has just created a new organisation called Building People, which is now part of the University of Estates Management. It's all about collaboration and playing nicely together, so it's actually linking up construction to the blue lights, to social services, to schools, to education, to academia, to try and encourage cross-sector conversations, but also cross-sector work experience opportunities. So if you get the chance to check out Building People, it's definitely worth a look.
Thank you. I want to cheat a little and just look to my left and look at Stuart, really, in terms of not coming into the industry. I must admit, Deeley Group wants to utilise new technology. We've started using off-site manufacture, etc. But sort of Stuart sort of gets my mind going about, like, how else can we use technology? They're a really innovative group, Paul as well. Just they just make you think outside the box. So it's sort of, we met each other on probably chamber conference type events. Yeah, so I was a bit of a sort of boys in their toys. I did see a massive drone. So I was like, oh, that was conversation. Yeah. But then equally you get chatting, and it sort of opens up ideas of like, oh, how can we work together, really? So Paul, you're Stuart, you're an inspiration.
All over the room.
So over to you then.
If you need some more time.
No, I'm alright, thank you. CITB, it's quite difficult for us to pinpoint an individual. The reason for it is because we oversee a hell of a lot, and we support a hell of a lot. So it would be a bit potentially unfair to draw attention to one, then compared to all the other excellent work that's going on with other businesses, other companies, other individuals. From an example point of view though, I'm quite happy to give examples with regards to the fantastic work that's going on. We've got stuff where businesses are very happy to go into schools and colleges to do practical demonstrations, bridge building evolutions, to get people thinking about STEM subjects, where how they can incorporate science and maths in a bridge building exercise. That works with other professionals, other institutes. We have businesses that work, for example, I had a meeting yesterday with a business and they've got a project ongoing with regards to supporting homelessness and how they're looking at recruiting people who are currently homeless and working and getting them out on site, training them, upskilling them, and they're working very closely with Shelter. And then we've also got the technology side of things, the use of technology, and so the scope from individuals is huge, and we will support a vast amount of industries and sectors within construction. So it would be difficult to identify individuals and businesses, but we champion them all, and I'm hoping that a couple of those examples, plus there are many more examples on our website. Please feel free to have a look and you can see exactly some of the excellent work that's going on out there, and then just do your own research.
I have got two, but two very brief ones. So there is in Clanbedder, if anyone's of a Welsh descent, they probably be able to criticise my pronunciation there. But they have converted an airfield, North Wales, and opened it up to research organisations and universities to use that space to develop technology in a safe environment where they've got plenty of space, they've got plenty of access to resources and knowledge from the aviation side. So they're looking at making things fly longer, fly further, different types of fuels, so the hydrogen fuel cells, which was a big thing a couple of years ago, but it's kind of died a little bit now. But they're continuing that innovative drive, looking at new technologies, fixed wing technology as well. And the other organisation is Manchester University. So they are very keen to talk about the use of programming and drones to some extent, but robotics in order to make services quicker or better. So the drone that was planting bricks, so a swarm of drones even, that are planting bricks, so they can work technically 24 hours a day with no rest. Once they get to working at height, that height danger or risk is kind of mitigated to some extent. And they also showed me one which was very clever, but I can't quite get the use of it yet. Oh, I can. Well, let's see if you can actually. Was a drone that was able to screw a light bulb in. So I initially thought, well, that's great, but what use is that? But then you think about people with disabilities or limited mobility, for example. A simple task like that. If somebody's actively involved in researching this and finding how to do it, and then you think about all warehouses that, how do you, this is a genuine question, how do you change the lights? Is it cherry picker? Is it? Yeah. So, there's a time and cost element to that involved. And the good thing with the University of Manchester is they are desperate for people to come and visit them, to show the exciting things that they're doing. And it's by looking at those types of organisations and activities that ideas will spark with kids as well. I think, well, if they're doing that, why don't we change the light bulb to something else, or that's something that's going to really inspire kids to do it.
Well, I can't single out anyone, I'm afraid. I'd have to sideline in construction. There's so many people, including locally, who are doing a really good job. There's local mechanical electrical engineers who are looking into storage of electricity and battery types and how we can store it to release energy when we capture it from renewable technologies and release it. Because that's the big problem at the moment, trying to store energy. So there's lots of local companies. But I have to go back, I have to say, to Elon Musk, just simply because they said it couldn't be done, and he proved everyone wrong. And in the process of proving them wrong, we have gained so many more new technologies and new ideas. And I think it's that idea of dreaming big and dreaming the impossible. And we do have things, and we tend to follow on from the technologies as we have, as you say. We've got a technology, how can we make it better? But why don't we just skip that bit and dream up here, dream of something impossible, and in the process of getting there, we'll unravel so much more. So I think it has to, I'm afraid, be the Tesla rocket man and all his interesting characteristics. But there are a lot of people in construction skill sets who are doing very good things.
Brilliant. Thank you all very much. As no one mentioned it, probably something less so for schools, but I will just mention the second one, the Lighthouse Trust. If everybody knows of them, it's a charity organisation that runs a 24-hour helpline for everyone in construction. They are a charity, so if you're looking for your charity for 2019, you might want to consider supporting them. But they provide a lot of mental health support, but also financial support for people undergoing problems in the industry. Thank you all so much. Can I ask you to just whoop and cheer and go crazy for this incredible panel? I have no doubt that you've got lots of questions, so who wants to start? Who's going to be brave?
Can I pick up on a couple of questions ago? I think it was about the environmental side, and I just wonder if any of the panel have any ideas or could shed any light on how far away or how close we are to a truly self-sufficient, sustainable building. Is that a pipe dream or is it possible? And if so, how near is it?
Does anyone particularly want to take that?
It depends how you measure it, I suppose, would be the question. Zero carbon, zero technology. Do you include everything that everyone plugs into their sockets if you take a typical domestic dwelling? What do you count it as? I'm quite sure we're there in terms of producing a building that is truly zero carbon. Whether the users will then follow on in all their electric heating, tiles, hair dryers, A-rated fridges. I'm sure everyone will have A-rated fridges. They'll use washing lines, they won't use tumble dryers. It's about buildings in use as well, not just buildings as they're designed. Yeah, we can design them to be energy neutral. We can do that, but it's how they're then used, and it's facilitating that. We can't just say that's someone else's problem. I think maybe we have to think about that as well, and how they're used to make sure we have a truly zero carbon building.
Yeah, no, a lot of it can come down to costs. So we do a lot of affordable housing, new homes, and then we're trying to future-proof those developments just to make sure that they've got enough sort of the utilities to provide electric charging points. May not put an EV charging point on every home at the moment, but planners are starting to make that more a critical point. So that's a way, just future-proofing what we're doing now and changing the add-ons. The Dutch are quite good at retrofitting their existing stock to make it more energy efficient. So it's constantly talk, we can't lean back, it works well for them, but they've got different types of houses. But just making sure we constantly move on and embrace technology really to make our homes and buildings more efficient.
In truth also, it's a lot about refurbishment stock as well, it's not just new build. We probably have more of a problem in trying to retrofit refurbishment stock than, as Ed says, than new build.
Any other comments on that one? Next question. Don't be shy.
I've got two actually. Given the massive skills gap that there is in construction at the moment, and all the new technologies coming on board that we've heard today and we're aware of, how quickly do you think the construction sector will catch up, given that the future generation is more interested in the technology side of it? How quickly do you think the construction sector in this country will catch up with those technologies in order to bridge that gap of skills?
I think there's like mentioned, there's a lot of technologies already available. It can come down to a bit of a cost thing. I won't get too political, but it's, for example, maybe housing associations don't have enough money to build your fully eco home. It's just do you try and use innovative ideas elsewhere? I'm not trying to dodge the question. It's a bouncer of a question, but again, I think I mentioned earlier, just constantly when we go out and talk to schools, it is just saying, regardless of what you're into, you could have care for wildlife and animals, and the sector is open to you. And just come and join us. And personally, I love going out and seeing what we've built and being involved in regenerating our local communities. It just gives you goosebumps now. You get a really good buzz from it. So it's a brilliant industry.
With a couple of facts and figures with regards to that, the actual construction within the West Mids is forecast to grow at an annual average rate of 1.8% between 2018 and 2022. So with regards to the promotion and what's going on, and people just look around. I mean, one of the bits of advice somebody said to me, the question was, they said, how good is the industry? How is it growing? And taking into account Coventry, I just said, well, just look up. If you want to see how the industry is going, just look up. And they, what do you mean by looking up? How many tower cranes are there in a confined area of Coventry? Oh, I never thought about that, no. And so there is a skills shortage, but it is getting better. And it is the industry is to grow, but also recruitment is to grow at a good rate as well. So from that point of view, CITB is working to push that and promote that to the point where we engage more with employers to ensure that employers have the facility of financial support, for example, and access to research to understand how the market is, but from a financial support with regards to being able to upskill their current workforce. So they upskill them to a point, and then they backfill what's gone on. So we can support the industry through apprenticeships. And there's no upper age limit for apprenticeships. Again, that's another myth. People think, oh, I'm a bit old for that now. No, not at all. There's also, with regards to some of the sectors we mentioned earlier, women in construction, people with learning disabilities, things like that, then basically, again, that's an areas that the industry welcome and engage with to promote and backfill the gaps. So there is a shortage. We mentioned Brexit, but if there is a shortage based on Brexit with people leaving, then personally that only works well for the UK as a whole, because then that would mean that people would come into the industry and everything else. So if people stay, that's great for the industry, but if people then choose to leave, then from a UK point of view, then people can fill those places with regards to the training available and the upskilling that employers are prepared to put into it. But employment is growing, and so there will always be a shortage. The construction industry is one of the industries that will always say there's a skills gap. It will always say, no matter, you can have lots of people working in the industry, but they're always short of these people. But it's when you start looking at the bigger picture with regards to how people work and where they move from to, etc., then potentially it is being addressed and it is moving forward. Yeah.
I don't see that the construction industry, from our perspective, has been particularly slower adopting than any other industry. In fact, that PwC report, the construction is the second highest area they predict for growth. So around, I think, £1.8 billion GDP increase by 2030, just in that sector alone. The only other higher one with that would be agriculture. So I think that with any industry, you have your early adopters, which go out their way to explore new technologies, savings and revenue increase. And then once that's a proven point, some of the more conservative companies will then look at adopting some of that technology afterwards. But that's no different to many industries, isn't it? There'll always be the early adopters, the pioneers, and then the less risk, so the more risk averse, will look for those established case studies and facts before they bring that in. But I don't see the construction industry as being
No, in the end, as you say, there would be the early adopters, as people who have gone out there and gone all in, the whole entire practice has been, and then there's people, as you say, who half and half it until it's proven and until demand actually meets it, because very often it's demand
Business
led.
case. Yeah.
So it might be that someone says, oh, we need all government projects must be bin level 3 or bin level 5, whatever. But not everyone says that, and sometimes people say it, and when they realise what it means, they retract on that. So yeah, there's the VHS Betamax debate constantly in the industry.
We're going to stay around for teas and coffees and things afterwards, but so you'll have a chance to talk to the panel as well. But is there one last question that anyone wants to grab the opportunity?
Yeah, go on. Just in regards to new technology, because I'm quite at my age as well, I never knew all the sides of construction, what jobs there actually are out there. So obviously things like virtual reality interests my age gap, but I'd never even consider using VR in actual construction. So the idea of having an empty room and you're looking around with your goggles and you can actually manually add your things like your insulation, everything like that part of a room. But so in regards to each of your industries, is there any room where you actually work with software companies that can develop apps for things like that, or is there anything that you'd consider to do to actually help engage with people, say my age or even younger?
Well, from our perspective, that's just one step on from 3D visualisation, really, because essentially it's then 4D visualisation in a way. We find it very helpful for clients who aren't always 3D aware to demonstrate to them what a space will look like, or a place will look like, a building will look like, how what you can't really demonstrate unless it's 4D is how it will feel, because that's something that we miss very often, how a space feels. But yes, certainly with that, it will help us engage, it will help the client understand what they're getting before they've built it, before they've invested that amount of money, and enable us to make fine-tune the building, the space to meet their requirements.
We've been involved in several sort of AR and VR projects, internally and externally. And I think the technology's there, but my concern is by trying to be inclusive to get snazzy visualizations out there and to show things visually, are we excluding some of the more traditional consumers and users of the products that we're doing by doing that? So the example, we've got a recent project where we want to cram a lot of information into a VR environment, so people can navigate and look at information rather than scrolling through a web page or viewing a document. They can have that interactivity there. But depending on the age group, maybe, or the various factors, is it going to be excluding a portion of your customer base by having that in that format? So I think the technology, we can do all these snazzy things in terms of data presentation and information presentation, but there's
cost.
Yeah.
Which
Yes.
might exclude a few other clients as well.
Yes, exactly. So yes, there is an exclusion in terms of the generating of it, but there are people that would be put off by that, which you can't ignore those. It's not a valid opinion, because if that's the way they consume information, then that's the way they do it.
I think the beauty of construction is it has both hand in hand. It's a kind of a natural progression. Where it's starting to take on board innovation, technology, and working alongside providers, businesses working alongside providers that focus on designing apps and things that allow businesses to design things. But construction, the key thing with construction is you still can't get away from that physical aspect of things. I think you can only go to a certain point with technology, but the physical aspect's still there. But the beauty of the industry is that it's kind of come together quite well. It's not like a chalk and cheese moment. Over time, it's starting to work successfully together. So where people and businesses are able to use technology to their advantage and work in partnership with organisations that design programs and things, but then at the same time, then they can also use the current technologies of today and some of the more physical aspects of things to then be able to support their customer, shall we say. So the scope is there for development. CLTB promotes and can work in collaboration with, I said that wrong, but collaboration with business and industry with regards to funding innovative technology. And if business has an idea, then if CRTB go with it, then there's funding there available, etc. So we can work with it, definitely. But again, at the same time, we don't lose sight of the traditional aspect of construction, but at the same time. So we make sure it fits in like a jigsaw, works well together. Yeah.
I think 5-10 years, that landscape might have changed, but
I think so, but construction is moving forward quite
transition,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, construction is very future orientated because it has to adapt to the times and the needs. We talked earlier about Brexit, we talked earlier about the environment. If construction stayed as it was 50 years ago, then it would be horrendous, really. But because people have moved with the times and are forward thinking, then they're more open to the concept of what's out there, and they embrace it far more.
It's got to be led by somebody, hasn't it? So
yeah.
Somebody's got to have that vision, and then that filters down through the business.
Yeah.
So I think whether it's a cultural thing or exposure to different attitudes towards technology, that's got to make its way up to a certain level of seniority within a company to then filter down.
It's also got to be something that drives it, because if you look at Formula One, I know Life Scientific was on about Formula One Sim. Was a lady engineer who developed a McLaren's Formula One Sim, and it's so realistic that I can't remember the driver's name. I'm not Formula One savvy, but he shaved 10 seconds off his track time by going around in a simulator that was super realistic. The wind, the sound of the engine as it changed gears, everything was super realistic, and he managed to shave 10 seconds, which I believe is quite a lot off his lap time, and he won the race. And that's because this sim was brilliant, and he was able to go around the track for hours on end in advance of the actual race, and he felt like he was there. Maybe there's something we can learn from that, we can derive from that.
Well, again, something with regards to that, Formula One's a good analogy, because also using something like that where technology got involved with the F1 car to the point where the larger racing setup were able to afford a slightly design tweak to their car, which made them slightly faster than some of the other smaller companies that were still competing. So F1 in its entirety said, okay, you've designed, developed something brilliantly, you've looked to the future, you've adapted it, clearly it's a winner, but no one else can have that, so you're not allowed it. So, which is a bit weird, so they've done that. So from that point of view, innovation can work really well with regards to the future, but at the same time it has to, and again using that Formula One analogy, it has to make sure it embraces the whole picture and not just being able to, make one forward leap for one particular sector or industry or company to the detriment of everyone else. Because we all work in the industry in our various guises, so we all support it in its whole. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you all, and thank you to all the careers advisors and teachers, and hopefully some students by now who are tuned in. Hopefully this has given you a sense of some of the things that are happening in Coventry and Warwickshire, and some of the opportunities for you in the future to come and be part of things, change things, shake things up, however you see that. To the room, I will extend the opportunity to keep these conversations going, to keep these opportunities and this dialogue going. I'm going to ask all of the panel to contribute some video footage and things, but there may be things that we've talked about today that have triggered ideas, concepts, information that you're already doing in your company or something that's of interest. If you wanted to stay and do some short video clips for schools, please do. I'd be very, very grateful if you would do that. But please join me in giving this rockstar panel one final round of applause.
And thanks to all of you coming in. So it's brilliant. Cheers.
Thank you.
Oh, hello. How are you? All right. Yeah.
Yes, how are you?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, sure.